And good morning, everybody. Welcome to our first session today, and we've now turned off that holding bay, the waiting room, and welcome everybody to the Beacon Executive for TFLG. Mr. Daly, Peter, welcome. Martin, welcome as well. Rob, and lots of others coming in as we speak. I want a special thank you to a panel of people. Sue Smith's joining us now as well. Welcome. So just before we get into our actual content today, I thought we'd just open up with a quick explanation of what this is all about. And we originally had planned an integrated 6-week program combining some of our accountants across Australia, and the feedback from a panel of early adopters, people that are on this particular call today, the Financial Advisor Network of Beacon and TFLG, gave us some great feedback, and we decided to make this much more fine-tuned and bespoke on behalf of just financial advisors. And that's why we're kicking off now with our own time, 9:30 on a Thursday, Eastern Standard Time. Little early in WA, and certainly slightly earlier in Vanuatu, where I believe one of the advisors in your network is happily stranded for another few weeks. So I hear, which is a bit fascinating. So just to give you some background, I'd firstly like to acknowledge some advisors that are here today. They're on this call, but have also arched a number of you: David Siostrom, Rob DiMartini, Tristan Gamick, Brian Perrin, Errol Rabaud, Rod Hudson. There's quite a few of you who have been happy to step up and dare I say, be our guinea pigs, where we're challenging them to achieve great results. And Peter Chun as well. Welcome, Peter. Also, the goal is to get as much feedback progressively as we can to continue to help you to succeed. And we'd like to think, thanks to some early content provided a week ago and feedback from those people, that we've got a pretty exciting 6 weeks ahead for you, uniquely for this incredibly challenging time, of course. And so to kick us off, I'm going to jump straight into that content. Now, for those of you that have been invited into that inner control group or influence group to help us with the content, you certainly know who you are. Most of you were in attendance to that session a week ago today. And I will certainly encourage each of you to either, in that particular panel, to step up and chat a message in the chat box, so that if you've got something you want to share at a particular point in today's session, that would be wonderful. I'll pick up the chat, I'll recognize that, and I'll open up the call to get you involved. Just in case some of you aren't particularly familiar with the Zoom operating system, this software, I'm going to send a test chat message to everyone on this call right now. So that's just come through from me to everyone. So hopefully you'll see a little chat box that's got a 1 or something on it. And if you click on that, that should open up the chat box to the right of screen for you, or to the side somewhere, if that makes sense. And hi from Marissa. Nice to see you, Marissa McDonald. Yep, Reg, you got it as well. Thanks, Reg. Graham's got it as well. From chilly Perth, nice and early, Graham. 6 degrees at 6 a.m. here, Graham, by the way, in chilly Melbourne. So we're doing our best for the old one-upmanship for an early winter. Peter Larkin working well. Peter Wilmont, all good. Lawrence, hello. Shane Matthews, nice to have you with us, mate. All good as well. Terrific. So you've got the chat box going. Too early for Graham. Yep. Okay, and Peter Chun's got loud and clear. That's good, higher. And yes, Nishant, nice to see you as well. So we're up and running. Rod, nice to have you with us, mate. Okay, let's get started and have a look at some of the issues that the esteemed panel have shared with us, and I'm going to summarise those for you to kick off. So, putting out information. This is from David Sjostrom last week. Putting out information, but not getting much engagement from clients, and new business is an issue at the moment as well. Okay. From Rob DiMartini, face-to-face eye contact is suddenly restricted. Of course, we've had this lockdown, and we've got clients are fearing getting out in public, of course. And so, you know, using Zoom, Rob really wants to see some technical training and some tips on how to really get the best out of that to increase engagement with your existing clients and also prospects as well. So we're going to build some of that in. From Peter, using DocuSign, Peter Chun, and screen share. Some very good innovation there from Peter to get his clients to sign on the line, which is dotted. Now that's something from the 80s. I'm sorry, that's an Alec Baldwin movie, but and those of you that need a good old injection of sales training and a bit of humor, I'll provide a reference to that 80s movie with Alec Baldwin and Al Pacino, an all-star cast, actually. Fantastic stuff. A little bit depressing, but a very good sales training movie, dare I say, all the same. People are not necessarily going to respond as well right now compared to when it's a pure face-to-face open traditional method. Well, the time has changed, hasn't it? So we've got to look at that now. From Brian, he's enjoying, Brian Perrin, we've put a bit of a marketing strategy together, which many of you will all learn about over the next few weeks to help you grow and gain new clients and protect the downside from losing some clients over this pandemic. And also cost and efficiency. We were looking to improve those things where we can. Some email communication, drafting effective email to wow your clients and really be on the front foot. From Shane, of course, some great feedback last week. Accountants aren't seeing their clients as actively, you know, it's all JobKeeper. So referrals from accountants have dried up to advisors, and that's a bit of a frustration. And absolutely. So looking at innovations like a letterbox drop off and pick up. And I think Shane even affected 5 in one day. Dropping off documents for clients to sign directly into their letterbox and picking them up. Insurance cancellations are an issue at the moment. Errol from last week's think tank, being able to communicate with the entire database, Errol, and you know we're nearly there. We're exporting your database at the moment and building an email platform for you with 500 individual clients. That's not only a challenge, it's a necessity, isn't it, to really communicate effectively. So we're deep into the development of that. From Tristan, it was also you know, some feedback around, yes, difficult to get paperwork out and back signed from clients at the moment, isn't it? It's one of the challenges. So we're going to look at how you can really innovate in that space. Wet signatures. The reality is that wet signatures on 32 documents, if you like, for a client might be a real challenge in this environment unless you systemize how you're going to do that. And of course, for the rest of the team, from the panel, I'm just summarising some final points here. The use of DocuSign, activating a strategy for new business. How do we do that? We're going to cover that over the next 6 weeks, and improving engagement from David as well. So why don't we get on with it? How's that for some feedback from the panel? Just out of interest, for everyone else that wasn't involved in the inaugural think tank last Thursday, there was, you know, a small number of you were asked to contribute some feedback. Did that think tank panel do a pretty good job of summarising the issues right now? Does that seem okay? We understand that about a 20% or 25% revenue challenge is being faced by a number of advisors at the moment in terms of renewals and so forth. So let's get right into it. Here we go. And so just kicking off today's session, got a couple of very important topics to share. Please, if you have a question along the way, do type it into the chat box. and I'll do my very best to determine if we should jump into that straight away at that time, or whether we'll table that towards the end. All right. This is our content for today, which many of you would be aware of. So let's go straight into that. Quick piece of housekeeping. We're recording this session for you as well. We try to keep the audio traveling one way, so that's part of the reason for muting everybody else. But as we go, of course, particularly those people from our think tank from last Thursday, we would encourage you to pipe up and be ready to express interest. Waving your hand in front of the camera screen may not do it, because there's so many of you on this call today that I may not in fact see all of you in one screen. Just to let you know, we've got 31 attending, so all of your faces won't fit on the one screen at once, so you might have to put a message in the chat box, please, to share a comment. We'd really appreciate that. Okay, 10 minutes Q&A at the end, which would be great. And as I said, using that chat feature would be fantastic. All right, let's have a look at the first one. Time management and capacity utilization. I want to talk about remote daily success habits, and I will ask the panel to nominate and just chat or drop into this conversation. Let's talk about your remote daily success habits. How many of you are consciously defining for yourselves a list of things that you can do differently while we're forced into this environment that are going to be success habits? Let me give you an example. If all I ever do is drink coffee with sugar in it and eat lots of donuts, and that's my entire diet, how would you determine that from a success formula point of view? Not necessarily success habits. So conversely, how many of you have been consciously building? It's Graham, the session is 1 hour, so it finishes at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for the question. So 9:30 till 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. So just out of interest, how many of you have been thinking about your success habits? How many of you have had through just a bit of overwhelm that maybe some habits have formed during this lockdown period that are not so successful, that aren't necessarily serving you? How many of you have taken the challenge and said, right, I'm going to use this time to reinvent myself, and I'm really going to take a positive approach as opposed to a negative approach? I'm going to ask for some honesty here, and particularly those from last week on the negative side first, and anyone that wants to drop a message in the chat box, please do. What have been some of the accidental habits that we've slipped into, such as eating too much day to day if we're working from home, maybe a little too much alcohol at night, not a lot of exercise? What are the things that might not be serving us that, if we stop and think about it, we're quite easy to slip into in terms of habits, even negative thinking, dare I say? Baking during the day, from Peter. I like that. Getting up later than usual, David. Yeah, absolutely. That's a pretty standard, easy thing to slip into, isn't it? Right? Particularly if you're working from a home office. Not enough exercise, Nevi. Yeah, welcome, Nevi. Sorry, I didn't recognise you earlier, mate. Somebody else? What else? And what about from anyone on the session? Snacking away, Tristan? Yeah. When I'm working from my home office, ironically, my home office has better internet than my office. So there's no incentive to go to the office. All of my team are working from home. From Peter, diversions, reading too many newspapers from Morris. Yep. From Rob, missing things too much. And that's, Rob, I'm suggesting that's your normal paradigms is what you're missing, Rob DeMartini, right? So Lawrence, on the other hand, plenty of exercise and cooking. So Lawrence is creating some interest there. Graham, wife at home on stand down. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but from Brian Parent, drifting away from things that make the big difference. Not enough client contacts and too much distraction. I get that one, Brian. I think it's very easy to slip into that, isn't it? Big disruptions at home. Absolutely. Yep. Distractions from too many emails from entities. Have you, by the way, who's found that there's 10 to 15 times as many experts suddenly on the internet, suddenly offering you all the solutions and all these amazing webinars? Who's been invited to more webinars in 3 months than their entire life? Just out of interest, you know. We've almost got to come up with a new term now, because we want to not disenfranchise you when we've got another webinar at 9:30 next week, don't we, on Thursday? So don't have any kids. Wife's is a good cook. That's dangerous, Morris, isn't it? So I guess here's the point now. Significant amount of negativity from clients, family and friends. That's so true, Shane, isn't it? It's such an enormous load to wear. And I think the biggest challenge for our financial advisors as a profession is that you are, in fact, financially literate. You are the people that they want to turn to. And the first thing they want to do, it's a bit like going to their hairdresser, isn't it? They want to vent. The client wants to vent. So even when you're finally getting to talk to them, however that is, it's frustrating you. So why don't we start now and have a real concerted effort now to focus consciously on, if we flip it and we say glass half full now let's only comment on the opportunities to do things differently. And let me give you an example. I used to have this wonderful excuse as to why I would not exercise on the back patio at home, because I loved going to the gym. And I used to say to myself, well, I learned this from Anthony Robbins, you know, the big American guy with the very tall dude with lots of books and life coaching and fire walking and stuff like that. And Tony said to me, you know, I love going to the gym because I change my physiology when I'm driving to the gym. You know, it's almost like it's a ceremony. So driving to the gym is a nice thing to do early in the morning, because it signifies the importance of the workout, and off I'm going to the gym. Well, now I can't go to the gym, it's closed. So for a little while there, I had this beautiful excuse running. What was it? I'm not motivated to work out on the deck, out the back. Correct? I'm not motivated. So it's a voice in my head. It's a decision I've made. I've actually almost unconsciously created a negative paradigm there, instead of actually focusing on what I can do. Now, fortunately, a couple of months ago, I broke out of that, and with only some 5 kilogram weights and some 10 kilogram discs and a little rubber mat out there for sit-ups and things like that, suddenly I've got a really good routine going for a couple of months. And who would have thought little 5 kilogram weights were even heavy, correct? My ego didn't even like the idea of picking up these crappy little 5 kilogram weights. But guess what I found? Pick them up 30 times. You'll be surprised, right? So our mindset is a real issue. And especially, as Shane pointed out, when you've got significant negativity from your clients, from your family, from your friends, you know, you've got to absorb all of that somehow and stay positive. Well, I'm telling you now, if you're not going to commit in the next 7 days to at least a small number of things as conscious decision changes for your mental health and mental success habits, it might be difficult to show up next Thursday and start doing some of the things we're going to teach you to do, because they will lead to positive outcomes. But of course, if we've got a totally negative mindset, it'll be very difficult to adopt those. Would that make sense? So the first thing we're going to do today, I hope you've all got a simple notepad and pen. I personally love the traditional notepad and pen. Are you right to go with those? The first thing I want you to do is only 30 seconds, right? Only 30 seconds in silence, is to write down and brainstorm anything that comes into your mind that could be, you're not going to commit to all of these things. It's just a brainstorm, all right? So nobody's holding you to the whole list. But I'm challenging you to just open your mind for a minute and just brainstorm every possible thing in a 24-hour period that you could consider adopting as a new success habit for your own mental health and your own personal well-being. Now, we're not going to hold you to all of these things. Remember that. So for 30 seconds only, grab a pen and paper now. I want you to write down every single thing that's a possible option, and you will discount some of these in a moment. So we're not going to hold you to it, as I said. Okay, 30 seconds is about to start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Write down everything that pops into your head. Nothing's a bad idea, and we'll stay quiet for 30 seconds. Let's go. All right. So time's up. So we're looking for a couple of brave volunteers, hopefully a couple of our panelists from last Thursday might be willing to jump on or either share a chat, some positive ideas. What are things that you could do? Remember, we're not going to hold you accountable to these. You haven't made the final decision yet. Peter Chun, are you okay to kick us off, mate, and just introduce everyone to your ideas there? I'll just unmute you. Give that a try, mate.
Sounds good. Thank you, John. Morning, everyone. How are we? I actually did take the liberty of going through probably a couple of weeks ago and reviewed my life, actually. It was quite interesting, with a view of what we could, what I could consider putting in place, scheduling through my calendar. I'm a little bit old school. I've tried software and Everly Notes and all sorts of weird things, and I just find that putting it in the diary, the calendar. So the first thing that pops up every day on my phone, my laptops, etc., is review your calendar. So just coming back to a more structured, habitual sort of process. And one of the things I committed to was learning to. I bought a. I won't go into the big long story, but anyway, a 1974 synth keyboard. I don't play keyboard, don't know how. So at the moment, I'm up all hours watching YouTube clips, understanding a little bit about chord progressions, modulations of frequency, and it's fun stuff. I'm now doing finger exercises in the morning for 5 minutes on the blues scales, and I suspect within 6 months I'll be able to maybe put a few things together and have a bit of fun. So I'm finding that really interesting. It's something that I would not probably have done in the normal structure of how I was operating. And I think it's a great opportunity to introduce different things, not just perhaps work, and get that lifestyle balance perhaps as a percentage ratio greater than work. So, yeah.
Well done, Peter. Great stuff. And for anybody that likes Peter's story there's some real inspiration in that for me. I love that. Connect with me on Facebook, Peter, for sure. Every Sunday, I'm forcing myself to to record and put on Facebook one new song on the guitar every Sunday that I've never done before. So of course, it's not particularly polished, the Sunday performance, that's for sure, but I'm getting out of my comfort zone, right? And it's forcing me to spend more time on guitar doing stuff that I'm a bit unfamiliar with, rather than the simple stuff where you really, you don't stretch your brain cells and anything else. So yeah, congratulations for doing that. That's a fabulous example of pushing yourself and actually creating a hobby or interest. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, which is really
other than drinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brian has put a chat in there. So closing Outlook in advice time, closing his email with no calls received, not following the media during the day, excellent decision, and generally saying no more often to distractions and things that would get in his way. So in other words, really focusing on your own to-do list, Brian, and I guess carving your own day by design and sticking to that, yeah, which is great stuff. Well done, Peter. Well done, Brian. Simon, so I think it's about 7 a.m. or 5 to 7 in good old Vanuatu, Simon. Simon Nuttall, been working on reviewing our tech stack from the customer relationship management to online fee collections, I should say, making processes more efficient and communicating more with our clients. Well done. It's interesting, isn't it? If you're in another country, you're really forced to just commit to jumping online and doing things on Zoom, aren't you? You're absolutely forced. And sometimes when your hand is forced, you'll actually innovate and adopt more change and actually make more progress even by default. Well done, people. Can I have one more volunteer, like Peter, just to jump on and summarise some of those insights? Who came up with some? Rob, did you have any there, mate? Just make sure we unmute you first, Rob. Give me a second. Check your browser for some reason. You might have to manually do it at your end, Rob.
How's that?
Done.
Yeah, a couple of things. I think we fall into the trap sometimes of emailing people rather than ringing them. So rather than emailing, just call people about things. And also just basically call more people, not necessarily about any business, but just to inquire how they are. Sometimes when you do that, you actually do uncover things that they do need, and also just generates business. So you could make 10 or 15 phone calls during the morning, and who knows, you might end up with a couple of those wanting some advice or help with something when you didn't really necessarily go out looking for it. And the other thing is too, I find that sitting in the office all day, I get stiff and sore. So twice a day I go for a walk around the shopping centre here. It clears my mind.
Yeah, such an important thing to do, Rob. Well done. And clearing the mind, whether it's like Peter's case, forcing himself to start learning the keyboard or the piano, going for a walk, Rob. For Peter Larkin, thanks for sharing, Peter. Designate exercise time, take a break for lunch, actually block the lunch time in your diary so it doesn't get hijacked. Yeah. Positive thoughts, daily calendar, to-do list. This is my sanity right here, because I carry forward everything that didn't get done and reprioritize every single day before the day begins, so that I don't have to, be a genius on a daily basis. I can just follow it on a checklist. And what's really important about that too is those 2 walks a day, Rob. Think about the old story of the 2 lumberjacks. One's a rookie, one's a seasoned veteran. He's been doing it for years, and he's the biggest, strongest man in the village. And these in the days of an axe, of course, rather than some sort of laser cutter. And the kid is told to just stay with this in his first week, in his rookie week. Stay with the legend of the lumber yard, and just follow him and copy him all week. And all week the kid's following and copying. And at the end of the week, he hasn't got much of attention from the experienced fellow. And the experienced fellow by Friday is frustrated and a bit jealous of the young kid, who's a scrawny little kid with a scrawny little axe. The big powerful man on the lunch break on Friday says, "Son, I've got to ask you a question. How the heck are you keeping up with me and cutting down the same bloody amount of trees as me this week? You're on your first week. You're a scrawny little kid with a tiny little axe. Look at me." I have to ask. I've humbled myself on day 5 of your first week of employment, and the poor kid looks at him with respect and says, "Sir, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. All they told me was every time you guys go and smoke cigarettes on breaks, I should sit down and sharpen my axe." And that's what the break is all about, isn't it, Rob? That's what the walk is all about. That's what the habit for Peter Chun, the new hobby, is all about. When you mentally rest, recharge, and take care of yourself, you are sharpening your axe. That is so important to understand that. If you go day after day pounding a negative mindset into your market, into your client base, you will literally be bludgeoning your axe up against bluestone. You'll be destroying it, and you'll become less and less effective. But when you start to design success habits, when you start to design a very successful paradigm for yourself, you are sharpening your axe. And it's incredibly important at this challenging time. Would you agree with that? All right. Thanks for sharing, and take 5 minutes out of from Michael Traficante. Take 5 minutes out of each day just to go for a quick walk. I totally agree. All of that, and from Sunhee as well. Sunhee, exercising regularly each morning, absolutely. Now, let's have a quick look at the summary of these things. So what we're saying here is remote daily success habits are really up to us, aren't they? We have to design them. Are you transitioning through this pandemic by design or by default? Because we have got many things that we can control. There are uncontrollables, but there are controllables as well. So the more of those we take responsibility for, the more by design we can take responsibility for our happiness and our health, our mental health, our physical health. Okay, let's talk about some team and individual productivity strategies, some technology stacks for maximum performance, and customizing our diary. So just quickly, the most important thing you can do with your diary is not start the day without a private list like this. I carry forward a list every single day. And I start a fresh date at the top of the page from the previous day, and I carry it forward. And even if 15 bloody things haven't been achieved from the day before, I'm rewriting them on today's date to help reprioritize them and reinforce what do I need to get done today, right? When I don't carry them forward, they slowly drop out of my mind. They slowly drop out of sight. Okay. Now, we have got some wonderful time management training for you that we're going to give you snippets each week over the next 6 weeks. And your productivity will absolutely improve, and you will get more done in less time. There's no question about it if you continue to show up and pay attention. All right. So the other thing that's really interesting is what are the technology stacks that we're getting involved in that are increasing our productivity? Historically, technology was not something that necessarily advisors were forced to really evaluate. It was really a choice, wasn't it? But I'm going to come back to Peter because you shared some of this last Thursday. Tell us about some of the technology that's working for you, Peter, in this challenging time. Sorry.
Okay.
Yep, there you go.
I think we're right now.
Yep. You're
Good.
clear, mate.
Yeah, we actually have a slight correction. We did move forward with Adobe Signature as opposed to DocuSign. Mm-hmm. So as an example of technology, that's something that we've now got up and running quite comfortably. Having a digital version, a PDF amendable document in the form of a CDF is critical, I find, in our business process. It was the one challenging document really that we needed to have an online process adopted for. Everything else we were able to do. We haven't had any pushback as yet, particularly with super funds, with regards to non-acceptance of non-wet signatures or digital signatures. And we have been fortunate. We've written 2 new clients in the last month. And as a result, we've been able to test the process out 100% online. And we've managed to nail that. So quite happy with that. We're now moving forward with, it's all good. We can sign clients on through a laptop, no problem at all. Let's just talk to them. And I think if we throw the energy and the right vibes on your voice cords across, I think there's no real restriction or issue or challenge. I think for me personally, I probably dug in a bit deep, thinking it was an obstacle I couldn't overcome. And sat there for a month and decided not to do any new business, which didn't help me.
Yeah, well done. By the way, I'm sure everybody attending today thanks you for your honesty and transparency, because some of us have stopped doing new business altogether right through this, and for you to be honest and say, well, you did that too, but luckily it was for a month, and then you started to work it out for yourself and work it out in your mind as well. And I think one of the big things I picked up on from last Thursday's brainstorming session and think tank was that many of you would probably appreciate if we provide a new best practice sales process map for you, a step-by-step, micro step the process of engaging a client through this technology, so you can all see it bit by bit, so it's not so overwhelming. I think if you have to make it up for yourselves and you're not entirely sure where to start, it might slow you down a little bit and overwhelm you. So I think one of our goals will be to release over the next 14 days a step-by-step methodology to you. Does that make sense? And then show you how to use it. And so we'll do some training either next week or the week after on precisely how to actually engage both remotely and digitally for maximum engagement with your clients. Using technology like this, like Zoom. There's another one built into Xplan, Brian, isn't there? Let's see if we can get Brian just to mention that. Isn't there a video conferencing tool, Brian, built into Xplan?
There's a thing called Sweetbox. What that means is you can have a video conference call with a client. You can bring in PDF documents. You can sign them in front of the client, and you can record it, and it's all filed in Xplan. And that's what I'm going to move to with my plans with Xplan.
Yeah, well done. Well done. And so that's so I'm going to run a couple of private sessions with Mr. Chun and also Brian. I'm going to micro step some of these things for you, and then innovate a little bit as well on the back of that feedback, so that we can give you some proper training over the next couple of weeks on how to use them. Okay. Now the other key insight here for me is how to set your diary up on a daily basis for maximum productivity. I want to give you a little bit each week, just so you can, like, peeling layers of the onion, you can just adopt a few things and then next week adopt a few more things. So just try this. If you've got your note paper with you, I'm going to give you a very, very particular approach. Okay. Assuming that you start your day at 9 a.m. and you finish your day at 5 p.m. Does that make sense? So so some of you will be different. So let's, on those assumptions, I want you to block out 9 to 11. Okay. So you might, in fact, if I just take a simple piece of paper, all right, if I'm drawing a column for, like, representing an electronic calendar for the day, the first 2 hours I'm calling 9 to 11. All right. And I'm blocking that out. Simple as that. And in between 9 and 11, I'm not making any outbound phone calls. I'm not, I beg your pardon, I'm not replying to email. I'm not receiving calls. I'm not allowing internal inflow disruption. Does that make sense? I'm spending the entire first 2 hours, and for the night hours, you may discover you like to do this the night before, but I'll explain. I'm spending the first 2 hours defining all the things from a prioritization point of view that I'd like to achieve for the day. So now, for a bookkeeper or an accountant, we use a question. We ask a particular question, which is fabulous. And I've found that it astonished me, but it worked beautifully for financial advisors. And I've got a couple of outstanding examples that have used this time management system that have grown their fees exponentially. So what can we invoice today, or what can we complete today? And that's how we build a big motivating list rather than a demotivating list. Does that make sense? What can we complete today? Or what can we invoice today? Can we complete an SLA today? Can we invoice a client today? Can we get a signature today? There's only 4 or 5 variants there that are positive, production driven. It's a bit like the chocolate factory, isn't it? What can we make today? How much chocolate can we make today? Well, how much can we complete today? And what are those items? And when you list those items and all you do for the first 2 hours is absolutely plan and prioritize those items, you'll be so focused on getting the primary ones ticked off for the day that then between 11 and 3, you're going to go and get that done, right? So then writing down, blocking out between 11 and 3. Think of 11 and 3 as like your engine room where you go and get those things done. You know, whether it's Shane Matthews's concept of going and dropping off the documents into the letterboxes for the client, or whether it's physically using, as Peter's doing, the digital system, getting the stuff out to the client, right? Completing and getting it out the door. Getting it done between 11 and 3, right? Now, between 3 and 5, that's the final chunk. Between 3 and 5, it's the final chunk. We want you to focus on 2 words: review and accountability. Review and accountability. So who wants to have a wild guess at why we use those words? Is anyone willing to have a bit of a crack at that? And there's no wrong answer to this. David, do you want to have a crack at that one? Review and accountability?
Oh, well, I guess it's just necessary to, you know, perhaps at the end of the day, just review our I guess, our success rate,
yeah.
Which in turn would, I guess, aid our accountability, really.
Yeah, like if any of you insisted hypothetically, which none of you have to do, by the way, that you had to pay me loads of money for one-on-one coaching, you know what I mean? Well, what do you think I'd be doing with you every day? Setting up the day, challenging you to go and do it, and then reviewing it at the end of the day, correct?
Yep.
So suddenly you've built your own world's best practice self-accountability system, right? And in the afternoon, we're saying to ourselves, what did we get done? What can we invoice? And great, let's celebrate those, ring the bell and get it done. And then what didn't we get done and why? What happened? What diverted us? Where did we get off track during the day? And we can reflect on that in the afternoon, can't we? And what we can say is, I checked the inbox at 11:45 a.m. and there were 5 emails that I just answered the first one, and before you know it, I was hooked. And 4 of them were irrelevant and I didn't really need to deal with them today, but I did anyway. Right? And then I checked Facebook and I said I'd only be there for 10 minutes. Oh, well, you know, there was some funny videos in there and that cheered me up a bit, and, you know. And I think it was probably closer to 45 minutes, and then it was lunchtime. And then, you know, my darling partner had this beautiful lunch waiting for me. I couldn't wait to get it. So, right. So that we want to reflect, we want to understand. Okay. So what can we do today? What can we invoice today? What are the priorities for the day? Let's get it done. And then let's review it and make sure it happened. Because let's go back to the lumberjack, right? Remember, the rookie was able to cut down pretty much the same amount of trees, have the same amount of production with an axe, only a smaller axe and scrawny arms, because he stopped and sharpened the axe. It's 20% planning and 80% production, correct? So the more planning, the sharper we are, the more we'll get it done. Okay, that's a very, very important behavioral analysis. So the 2 challenges for you for this week, the 2 challenges are to adopt that system and see how much more you can achieve on a daily basis without overwhelming yourself. Don't work a 12-hour day, please. Don't, you know, fabricate how you become more productive. Do it in 8 hours. Now, the one thing that I find is the secret sauce is the 1 hour that we haven't catered for that we must talk about. And it's planning to plan. All right. What I found, this is a beautiful system, but it gets disrupted once you start your day. So you've got to kind of have this, you know, have your to-do list that you're brainstorming as you sort of hit 9 a.m. Starting 1 a.m. That I spend an hour with a coffee, you know, thinking about it the night before or the morning of. That makes a huge difference. Yep, absolutely. In fact, what I'll do, Peter, you've asked me to post this planning list on the chat. What we'll do is we'll release a 1-page worksheet. Okay, because in the best practice program, that's something we've put on hold, you know, the annual thing that we do monthly for a year. we've actually got a whole workbook on this whole system, right? We've got a time management workbook. It's got 30 pages in it. I'm going to extract one of those pages and we'll circulate it to all of you on an email today. How's that sound? Right? And it'll just show you how you use those 3 chunks of the day. But the secret sauce is having a massive to-do list ready to carry forward from the day before, right? And my other little tip, we'll go into more detail next week, is I'll try and use 40 minutes, half an hour on a Saturday morning or a weekend to reflect on the entire week, and then, start with a big list to carry forward again. You can't measure it, you can't manage it. Absolutely correct. From one of you here, we use advisor logic at this stage. We don't want to move to X-Plan simply because of the work we'd have to put into the AL software. Are we able to talk to Morningstar to work out a way for us to use for electronic signatures or fact-find documents? Excellent question. The executive and I will refer to that and come back to you, I think, after today's event in that regard. Thanks for that, Sunhee. The reality is you're all using different tech systems at the moment, no question. Okay. Now, what about if you do have young kids, you're working from home and you've got young children? That's a great question. And this system is exactly the same. The only difference will be if you've got, infants and very young children, they will have their own 24-hour rolling routines, won't they? Their sleep patterns, their waking times, their feeding times and stuff like that. So you'll simply customize this and master through a little bit of ongoing analysis how to modify it around your children, okay? I'll give you an example. Nowhere on this list at 4:30 last Thursday, a week ago, when it was beautiful sunshine for like about 15 bloody minutes in Melbourne, I didn't have it on my list to go and cut the grass, but I decided, because I've been working all day, that it was actually a good little mental health break for me, was to literally push the mower around at 4:15 till 4:30 last, and it wasn't on my list, but it was just no different to having a walk as Rob goes for a walk, right? So we've got a pinch of salt, children as well. Okay. Advisor Logic and Hero 360 already working towards is that running now, Peter? Electronic signatures, is that right? We're working on it. They're looking into it and stuff like that. Fantastic, thank you. Okay. Now, so what's the other piece of homework? We discussed slightly earlier. That was the first one, 9 to 11, 3 to 5. What's the other one? Deciding from your list of all the options you could implement, what you could implement in terms of success habits, healthy habits, mindset habits, hobbies. What are the please don't commit to 15 things and overwhelm yourself and then get all cranky and blame me, right? Just choose one or two things that make the most sense to you. By the way, I'll give you some hardcore success habits that I've adopted thanks to a very nasty, or what they call, I think they call it a high conflict divorce. Have you heard of something like that? Sadly, I'm part of a high conflict divorce, and very sadly, I've been alienated from my children. And so mental health has been an incredibly important thing for me. So I gave up alcohol about 93 days ago. Not necessarily counting per se, but approximately. And I gave up hot showers, morning and night, about 110 days ago, since about the 15th of January, actually, to be precise. So absolutely, I can see Tristan's cacking himself there. Melbourne water is getting cold, by the way. Would you believe it? It is, it's getting pretty cold. And I'm having cold showers morning and night. It sounds extreme, but if anyone's really interested in the power of the mind, and you don't want to just do a little bit this week, I'll give you a tip. Google a fellow by the name of Wim Hof, W-I-M for Mary, Hof, H-O-F-F. Google this nut job, right? He's an amazing character, and let me tell you what he's doing for my mental health I owe him 10 million bucks, right? I was really down and out middle of last year. And these cold showers, I tell you, you recover from a depressed, a genuine depression sort of mind state within a few short weeks. It's just phenomenal stuff. And so I won't quit on them now, despite the fact that the water's getting very cold in Melbourne. But gentlemen, just a tip, if you adopt, and ladies too, if you adopt this strategy, which some of you probably won't, I guarantee you, if you have a very cold shower, the last thing before you hop into bed at night, there'll be no good loving on that night. Your body's so cold, you'll scare your partner away. So you're going to have an evening shower, get it done early and warm yourself back up again. Or, that's the end of your love life. But anyway, learn that one the hard way. Too much information? Sorry. Okay, so let's keep moving. So here's what we're talking about. And Peter, as you asked for that, I said we'll release a checklist, a proper one-page of success habits so you can follow them a bit easier, okay? Let's quickly talk about one-on-ones. If you've got employees, make sure you talk to them one-on-one each week during this pandemic. Just have 5 minutes with them, 3 minutes, just have a chat rather than go through their workload with them. Just have 5 minutes with them on a video call. How are you going? Look at them eye to eye like this on Zoom. It's free, right? It's free to use this, by the way. Sign up for free. It only gets expensive when you start having multi-attendees. One-to-one, you can use it complimentary. And so it's a great little service. And up to 45 minutes or up to 40 minutes, you can have more than one attendee as well. Then it automatically cuts out. But every single financial advisor, accountant, bookkeeper, and lawyer must be using Zoom for instant video communication. It really increases engagement. Okay. Let's see what else we wanted to cover this morning. So in summary, we want some exercise, don't we? Think about meditation. If you've never tried meditation, we might also give you some guided meditation. That'd be a good thing, wouldn't it? Some really simple stuff to look into. Great to see Rob's talking about having a walk twice a day, even a drive, even just to have a little bit of a drive to go and get a coffee or something is a great way to break up the whole day. New hobbies from Peter Chun. What a great example from Peter Chun that he's jumping on a new hobby. All right. One of the things I'm going to encourage you to think about is to start trying some simple technology that's easy to adopt. Now, most of you I know don't necessarily have you may not have lots of employees, right? But if you do have, some of you don't, but if you do, try something called WhatsApp, all right? And WhatsApp, I'll put it right up on the screen here. It's a green one. See that in the middle there? And even as a hobby, what about just as a hobby to feel like you're keeping up with the times? Why not download WhatsApp as just a little challenge for the next 7 days? If you're not using it, just download it. Yeah, there it is there. The green background, the white little icon. Just download it to your phone. It's on all smart platforms, smartphones and iPhones and, Google Play Store. And just download it. It's free. And wouldn't it be fun if we could all have a little WhatsApp chat group for sales training, tips and tricks, success habits? Wouldn't that be cool? And it's just a text. It's like a text message, but you can text message lots and lots of people in one go if you form a little group in there. Very easy stuff to do. We can teach you how to do it, right? But what's interesting is my team, I've got 6 full-time employees, a couple of part-time. My team message each other on WhatsApp more than 1,000 chat messages a week. More than 1,000 a week. And what it does is it stops clogging the email inbox with internal emails. Does that make sense? So particularly for the Beacon Group at an estate level, exec level, WhatsApp is brilliant for those short, sharp. You send one text message from Mr. Daly and the whole executive gets it. So it's very efficient for Mr. Daly as well, right? So from a business owner's point of view, it's a really good thing to have, even if it's for your family, because it's a communication tool for your family and friends as well in a simple chat. All right. Okay. So I want to turn to the panel now. I'm going to ask all of you to think about what is the most important thing we've covered this morning for you to consider in terms of your mindset, your mental health, your productivity, your time management, setting yourself up for success for the remainder of this calendar year, because I think, you know, we haven't got to opportunities yet. We're going to start that next week. So next week, we're going to get into growth opportunities. We've got some stuff we're going to unveil to you, which is very, very exciting. I might do a very quick overview, but for some, but I really want to hear from the panel to hopefully lead by example. What are the most important things that have stood out to you today that you are going to be open-minded about adopting or applying? Who's maybe on last week's session or on that early adopters, Rod, Tristan, who hasn't spoken up yet that might be willing to just share right now? Is anyone ready to jump on before we go back to the same 2 or 3 that already have? Tristan?
Yeah, I suppose the big thing I'll take away is not being afraid to spend some time to actually plan, not sit down and jump straight into it, and not feel guilty about if I want to take the dog for a walk in the morning at 9:30. So be it, provides not on a Thursday. Yeah, and get that schedule logged down. I think that's pretty good. Work more smartly as opposed to just burying yourself in chaos.
Yeah, well done, mate. You're absolutely right, 100%. And the irony is, if you don't block out that time, someone else will. Like something will hijack the time, and it might even just be you just lethargically working away the same way you did yesterday, right? Whereas if you put that diary, put the e-calendar, set the reminder, take the dog for a walk, you know, break at 10:30 for a walk, whatever that is. If we plan to plan, we're starting to perform and behave like the top 10%, right? When you plan to plan, it's the opposite to failing to plan, isn't it? Planning to fail, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well done. Great stuff, Tristan. Somebody else? Who else is willing to have a quick summary, key insight so far from today? Errol, are you okay, mate? Would you give us yep. Let's see, is your audio working? I'm not sure. I can't hear you, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that. We can't hear you at the moment. I have unmuted you. Maybe we'll set you up. We'll test this after this morning session. I'll get Ben or one of my guys to have a quick Zoom with you, mate. We'll make sure we get all your settings right from here on, okay? Sorry about that. Peter, Mr. Chun, how are you? What have you picked up, mate?
Yeah, review and structure. Those are the 2 key elements that came through. I couldn't agree more. Definitely not certain about the cold showers, mate, but I will go and have a look at that clip. Sounds interesting.
Yeah,
Thanks.
one of the accountants I'm mentoring, he wants to be in our sort of our A list of accountants across Australia, and he's telling me I've got to push him, and he's always sending me text messages. Don't let me off the hook, John. Make me, and I'm saying fine, get in the cold shower. Let me know how you go. He reckons he lasts about 30 seconds, right? So he hasn't quite got it down yet. When you're massaging conditioner into your hair under a cold shower and actually washing your feet with soap and letting the conditioner soak in, that's when you know you're getting it down. But anyway, David, what about you, mate? Insights?
Yeah, I like the idea of considering who I could invoice, just from the perspective that it's something I've probably forgotten about. I've just been doing all sorts of other stuff, and I think it'll help me to identify some opportunities and also just maintain a bit of cash flow at the moment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Good work, mate. Brian's already he's a very polite young fellow, Brian in New South Wales. He's sent us his message. He summarised it. Always keep sharpening the axe and valuing his time. Yeah, well done, Brian. Excellent summary, mate. Rod, what about yourself, mate? Are you okay to share? You should be right, I think. Yep.
Yeah. I guess the planning thing, that's always been a weakness. So you sort of fumble your way through the day. I did send you a message and ask you to sort of comment. I think, well, I did send it was sent to you. Anyway, I asked you to comment about incorporating client appointments into your day, because I've found that no matter how many times I try and plan with the staff and say, right, Mondays, no appointments on a Monday. That'll last for a while, and then it'll be Mr. and Mrs. Smith can only see you on a Monday, or no appointments before 11 o'clock. Last for a little while. Mr. and Mrs. Smith can only see you at 9:30 on a Wednesday. So it's very. I found that difficult. And the other comment I made in my message I sent you was that I do find it difficult at times to then get back into doing what I was doing before the client review meeting. Because invariably there'll be some things to do after as a result of that meeting. So that calendar you presented to us sort of had no other obstacles throughout the day. So if you could show me how I could do that and incorporate, say, 3 or 4 review meetings in that day, that would be very helpful for me.
Absolutely, no problem. Thanks, mate. And you're right, it just snuck through. It was about 10:20. One in there. So 2 things. We would be encouraging you to never see clients on a Monday and a Friday. Right, and would be ideally making all our client appointments between 11 and 3 on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Right,
Might work.
Yeah, and well,
because clients want to see you when they finish work. And it's hard enough to try and convince someone to come in at, say, 4 or 5 o'clock.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Let me explain how this works. We've got, for every one of you that's staying with us for the whole 6 weeks, we're also automatically granting you access to our learning management system. And there's some of the best time management training in the world is like the detailed version of this, Rod, as well. And what I want to share with you is a concept called the 80-20 rule, right? Now, you've heard it before. We've all heard it before, right? But how it applies to getting your diary organized is if 80% of your client meetings, if 80% of your clients accept the guidance or the effort to be organized between 11 and 3, then you've only got 20% trying to break the rules and trying to see you after those timeframes, correct? So what we often find is 80% of the time, you'll get your clients to agree to your schedule. It's only the 20% that are more recalcitrant. And I want to see you at 6 o'clock, Rod, you know? Well, so step one, if we can organize 80%, it's number one, it's a lot easier to deal with the 20%, you know, that are outside those parameters. And what's really interesting is when you meet with that 20% and you eyeball them one-on-one, whether it's a Zoom video call or whether you do actually catch up with them, when you explain to the 20%, listen, I'm really hoping that in the future, you'll be able to help me with my diary and my time management a little bit. You know, is it absolutely impossible for us to do a Zoom video call, you know, at some time during the week between 11 and 3? And then what you'll find is 80% of the 20% will buckle and say, oh, I'm sorry, no, that's fine. I'm happy to work with you. You know, and so now you're down to 4% that are insisting at 6 p.m. Right? So we've got to break it into chunks. Okay. And there's a 27-minute training video I want you to play to your team, which is actually designed to talk to them. Right? So we've got to give you access to our learning management system, and we'll show you where it is, and just sit them down or get them to watch it online. You know, we'll give them a link, and that 27 minutes will help you to very gently and very delicately reestablish some new expectations with your team to value this time and value your diary. Yeah. And every single time an advisor plays this, the team just goes, okay, yeah, that makes sense. All right. Does all the selling and convincing for you. All right. Because you're right. They'll break the rules and they'll just put, oh, you know, Mr. Smith said it was important, so we put him in. Right. So we've got to train them and get them to rethink that. Okay. So very importantly, I will make sure that I check with all of, with my team to make sure we've got all of your details, those who have attended today. You'll be invited into the learning management system. As you know, today was also a complimentary session. We're not asking you, you're not on the hook financially for the full 6 weeks. That's a choice to attend the 6 weeks. There is a cost associated with that. For people like Marissa McDonald, for those of you, Shane Matthews, Errol, if you've already signed up for our marketing system, right? Peter Chan, there's many of you, David Siostrom, Rob DiMartini. If you've already signed up for that marketing system, Rod Hudson, there's no cost to attending this current 6 weeks, right? It's built into that marketing system. But if you just want to do the 6 weeks, there's a fee, obviously. We'll come back to you about that. Not for today. Thank you so much for your time today. Sharing your pain, Simon. Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate that. And I know what you're talking about there. For those of you that also have unique frustrations, no different to the panel that attended our think tank last Thursday, would you share with Rob McCann or Sue Smith or Martin your own frustrations? And I'm sure if they're likely to agree with you, and then send them to us, and we'll build them into this system to make sure our training is addressing those challenges that you face. Does that make sense? All right, because that's what we're here for, is to really turn this upside down and turn this into a success story for all of you. This once in a 100-year challenge that we're faced with. All right, and it's not what happens to you; it's how you respond, isn't it? That's what it's about. And so it starts with our mindset, it starts with our daily success habits, and it certainly starts with our mental health. It's all about that. Okay. So have a great week, everybody. My team and I will do all the admin behind the scenes. You'll be invited into our learning management system as of probably about 1 or 2 o'clock today. You'll get an email, so look out for that from Best Practice. Any other questions or help that you need, please document that into an email, flick it to Sue, Martin or Rob. And together we'll put this content together to suit you and make sure it's going to address these things and have you flying in 6 weeks' time. All right. Have a great week. Look forward to sharing with you soon.